When I first learned about dynamic chaining when it was released, it blew my mind that this was something it could do. But basically, originally before this, if you wanted to kind of link things together, run multiple topics, you had to do that navigation manually by redirecting based on the conversation or whatever. But with the feature of dynamic chaining, Copilot will analyze whatever the person's message is, the question or whatever, and it will actually create a flow of the conversation, running multiple topics or plugin actions, which I'll talk about in a moment, to basically make that flow of conversation as efficient as possible. And it allows the user to get multiple points of data without having to manually ask that over and over again each time it already gets an answer. It basically takes a description of the topic, which is built into the trigger of that topic. Originally, it is you'll have to design a bunch of phrases to basically initiate that topic. But now all you need is a description saying this topic will do X, Y, Z. And Copilot will now understand if the user is wanting that. It will understand, hey, this is the flow we need to get to initially. And it allows, like I said, to kind of chain these together and pass around different data points that you might be needing. In this example here, which Michael will show later on, we say, I want a list of all the project members, and then it'll ask me, it knows to run the first topic there, the get project ID from project name, because we need the project ID to actually get the project members. So it knows the user did not actually supply the project ID, so I need to actually run that topic first. And then once it ran that, it knows, okay, we have the project ID now. Now we need to actually make the call to get the project members. And you can see that image on the right. You can see the flow using that log to kind of see it matched everything together into a chain. And Michael is going to show more of a live demonstration of how that works later on, but it's very, very nice, especially with the feature on the next slide that you can use hand in hand with that called plugin actions.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so plugin actions are another extraordinary feature that has completely changed the way you're going to probably build a topic. Originally, if you had some sort of data source or platform that you wanted to get some information from, you had to build a topic, get the information, ask questions if you didn't have any sort of information ahead of time, and it got kind of complex and just a lot more of low code than a lot more to the low code than you would expect. But using plugin actions, yeah, a lot of steps. And using plugin actions, you can take advantage of the 1,000+ built-in custom or the built-in connectors that are on the Power Platform, or any sort of custom connectors you build to actually interact with these platforms. And you can basically add it to act as its own topic. So in an example we had before, we added this custom connector for Rudder that would return all of the project members. And we added that as a plugin action so that it just knew, hey, here's the features, here's what this does, and it knew to call that eventually because that's what the user was wanting. You can basically create a topic in itself without any sort of extra work. But you can also call these actions from within topics themselves to, if you want to kind of force that action to run instead of relying on dynamic chaining, because the user might not ask a question that initially prompts for that action to run. But one awesome feature is it uses generative answers to ask the user for any questions or any data points or details that were not supplied initially. So in the example we have here, I say, what is today's forecast? But I didn't specify a location, so it knows, hey, I need to actually ask for the location, and it generates that question without any sort of tinkering from me. It says, what is the location you'd like to get the current weather for? And then I say Seattle, and then it will make that request to the weather connector, get a bunch of data back, and then uses the data that is returned, which I believe is JSON, and it will format a response containing any sort of relevant information the user was wanting. It made the assumption of I needed to use Fahrenheit in this case because that was the location. But if I were to say I need forecast in Celsius, it could automatically transform to the metric metric system and give me a similar response, but in not in Fahrenheit in this case. But it's very powerful to use along with dynamic chaining because there's a lot of situations where a user might need some sort of data to run other data, as we saw in the example in the previous slide. But Michael has some really useful examples of really applying plugin actions and dynamic chaining and interacting with external systems.
Yeah, thank you, Jordan. These are very cool features that I see being used quite a bit going forward at this point. So I am going to show a demo on our external system called Rudder, our timekeeping system that we use within RockHop. I have created a custom connector to reach that Rudder API. And I have some endpoints configured there for the Rudder API. I'm going to, you saw in the screenshots before, I'm going to try and get the project members from a specific project within Rudder. So kind of the hierarchy within Rudder is you have your clients, you have your projects under clients, and then you have your project members under a project. So I am going to request that I get project members for a project, and it's going to kind of chain those actions together and make sure that it gets the correct format for those parameters that it needs to call in those APIs. So it tries to fill in those gaps within the action. And the other demo I'm going to show you is actually updating my timesheet within Rudder from Copilot. And then we'll display my my timesheet after that. So let's get into it. All right. So the first thing I'm gonna ask is I want a list of the project members for a project, and you can see this live. There's a tracing mode now that it will show you what it's actually doing within dynamic chaining. So since I didn't refer to a project like Jordan said, I'm going to throw a project in here. We have a project called budget management. It was able to then grab that project ID from this topic. It went and grabbed that from Rudder based on the name, and it filled that in the project ID parameter that's in my custom connector that's connected to this custom action or to this plugin action. So pretty awesome. This is super powerful. This is a very generic demo, but this can get pretty complex quickly in terms of the calls that you're trying to do. And when I say complex, I mean dynamic chaining can kind of handle the complexity and filling in the gaps for any of these endpoints that need to be called to external systems. So I actually do want to quickly show you what a plugin action looks like. So they're located in topics and plugins. And I actually just want to show you what this kind of looks like and how easy it is to set these up. So you have a plugin action here. You give it a description for AI to basically know when to use this. You can turn on dynamic chaining so that it can be used within dynamic chaining. So it can use the outputs that you get from this plugin action within dynamic chaining. And then you will connect whatever the connector is that you want to use for this plugin action, which in our case is a custom connector. But you can use any of the out of the box connectors. You can use flows. It's quite amazing what you can do with these plugin actions and how easy it is to get these kind of set up. Now, there is a little bit of architecting them in terms of inputs and making sure that they work with the dynamic chaining. So you do have to be logical in how you're setting these up and make sure they're architected correctly. So that is pulling information from Rudder. Now I want to show you updating information in Rudder. Now, in this Copilot, I am right away calling Rudder to get my member ID. So it pulls the current user who is using this Copilot, and it will then reach out to Rudder and grab the ID so that throughout the context of this chat, it's only updating my timesheet, and I'm only pulling my time cards back. So we're not confusing that with anybody else or pulling anybody else's time back. I just wanted to show that for demo purposes that it is pulling that back right away. And then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to create a time entry. So I have a prompt that says create a time entry for the AdventureWorks project budget management for 30 minutes on 2/2/2024. And I tell it to add a note saying this is from Copilot, and please make sure that we note that this is from a bot. And it comes back and says, hey, a time entry has been created for this with these details. Now let's just verify that it actually did it and AI is not lying to me. So I'm going to go and pull my list of time entries within Rudder. I should have one prior to the one that I entered. We'll see. No. AI didn't want to cooperate there. Let's try it again. Let's just refresh this. I don't know if I've refreshed this morning, so give me 1 second. Let's let AI wake up a little bit here. And let's try this again. I just want to view my time entries. Okay, so this one does not seem to be working. I might have done something here to confuse it. But if we go into Rudder, we can see that we have our time entry created here. So I had my previous one from yesterday and then this one created. We can see the note is in here, hello from Copilot. This was done via a bot with all of the information that I inserted here, 30 minutes and the AdventureWorks budget management project. So pretty cool. It did have a hiccup on that listing the time entries, which I have not seen before. So that could have been my fault. But for the most part, that is pretty awesome in terms of what we are able to do now within Copilot. So we can reach out to external platforms. We can read data from them and it will format that raw data that it gets back in a format that is human readable. It will also update any external platforms as well. And it will take that data that I inserted in that text prompt, dissect the different endpoints that it needs to, or the different data pieces that it needs to put into those parameters for that custom connector to be called successfully. So that's a lot that's happening within that plugin action, and with very little that I'm doing to kind of tell it where things should go and that sort of thing. And that is very powerful and pretty awesome. So those are plugin actions and dynamic chaining. The next thing I want to talk about is Azure OpenAI and Copilot working together. So there are two ways that you can use OpenAI with Copilot. One is via Power Automate that's being used as kind of the connection between the two. That's the one I'm going to show for this demo because that's the one I've been working with for the past couple of months and built previously. It also allows us to show exactly what's being called to OpenAI and all the different parameters that you need to insert and get those responses back from OpenAI. There is a feature for deploying a Copilot from Azure AI Studio using your OpenAI deployment. I will not demo that in this demo now, but I do want to call out that feature that is there as well. It will create a connection to OpenAI, and you'll be able to use that connection within your Copilot. So pretty awesome stuff seeing these two work together. Let's go ahead and check it out. Okay. We have our OpenAI connection Copilot. To give you a little background of where all this data is located, I have created an Azure Blob Storage container that houses some of our RockCop benefits documents, as well as some ChatGPT generated benefit documents for the company Contoso. So we have a few documents in there. I'm going to ask some questions, and we can go over how exactly this all is functioning. So I'm going to ask a simple question here. What time period does the new RockHop benefits cover? So again, this is calling out to the flow, which is then calling our OpenAI endpoint deployment that we have in Azure AI Studio, which I'll show in a second. And then responding. So we were able to get a response. It's from December 1st, 23 to November 30th, 24, to be expected. Now I need help with my vision. What number should I call? So say an employee wanted to come in here and get some details on benefits. They don't want to sift through documents, but they really need to call the hotline for vision help. Well, this pulls this out of our benefits documents, and you can contact that number to get some help with your vision. So pretty cool. It was able to grab that from our benefits documents. Now let's look at Contoso. I'm going to ask how many PTO days does an employee get at Contoso? And let's see what it comes up with. It says, according to the Contoso Employee Benefits Guide, they get 20 days off. And it even gives me the accrual rate of 1.67 days per month. Pretty cool. And then last question I have for it is, what is the 401k employer match at Contoso? Let's see what they're giving them. They have a 5% employer match. That's pretty great. I'm a pretty happy employee at Contoso. So that is that's kind of the front end of this. This is calling back to OpenAI and grabbing responses. Let's kind of take a look at the different aspects to this. So this is the flow that's getting called and acting as the connection between OpenAI. So this is getting triggered from Copilot. We have our question that's getting inserted. I have some variables here that you'd want to store in Azure Key Vault, some keys that are used for OpenAI, and then I'm inserting them here inside of the API call to OpenAI. Now, this is a big call with a lot of parameters. You can actually generate this from AI Studio and paste it in here. So they make it pretty easy. You can configure all of these things and then take that code, paste it in here, and you're ready to go. So it calls out to OpenAI, it parses that response, and then we respond to our Copilot with that OpenAI response that was returned. Now I'll quickly go over Azure AI Studio. I'm not going to go in depth on this, but I do want to just show you how to quickly get this set up. Now again, I am using blob storage within Azure, and I'm actually using Azure AI Search to integrate with Azure AI Studio. The index, I'm surfacing that blob storage as an index within Azure AI Search. Blob storage is certainly not the only thing that you can use with Azure AI Search. You can use any of these endpoints within Azure or any of these data sources within Azure, and even SharePoint Online. So you can imagine what that kind of opens Copilot up to. All of the data sets that you may have in Azure, you're able to use within Copilot. Now, for our sake, we're using blob storage. I've configured this index. You can even play around with your deployment here. I'm using the GPT-35 Caribou 16K deployment within Azure AI Studio. That's my model. And I've configured my data source, and I can say, let's just use one of our prompts that we used earlier so you can see exactly where this response is coming from. So this should be exactly what we saw within Copilot Studio, which it is. So we can see, according to Contoso Employee Benefits Guide, 20 days off, 1.67 days per month. So you can kind of test your model out here that's connected to anything through Azure data. You can play around with the parameters, all of this stuff. And once it's set and ready to go, you can then view the code behind of what AI Studio is actually using to generate this response. And I can paste this directly into my flow. So that's kind of how I came up with this. And that's how we're kind of communicating between Copilot and Azure OpenAI. So pretty powerful stuff here. We can really tap into some large data sets and surface them through Copilot, and really opens things up for companies there. Okay, so that concludes the demo piece. The last thing I want to cover here quickly, I know we're running short on time, is a couple things that I didn't cover that Dave did mention in his slides. So plugins, a lot of plugins. That name is used often right now within this Copilot ecosystem. So we can create custom plugins for the M365 Copilot, and that would be accessing any external APIs or any custom solutions for that are specific to your business that are not included kind of with the out-of-the-box M365 prompts. So you can create custom .NET solutions to actually implement into M365 Copilot. The other thing is conversational plugins. These, the best way to describe these, for me at least right now, is they're almost a component library of almost topics. So you create a containerized set of nodes that can use actions, they can use all that fun stuff that that we just demoed, and it makes it kind of reusable to use within M365 Copilot or Copilot Studio. So a lot of cool stuff in the making here, and all of this will only get better over time as they keep developing on these plugins and features.